It started on a rainy Friday evening. Emma was sitting by her kitchen window, sipping lukewarm tea, when her phone buzzed. A text from her best friend, Lily, popped up. "Hey, my cousin's coming to stay for a while. Hope that's okay." Emma didn't think much of it at first. She had met Lily's cousin a couple of times before, but only briefly. Still, there was something in the tone of the message that made her pause. She typed back quickly, "Of course, no problem. When is he coming?" Lily replied instantly, "Tonight. Around 7. I hope it's not too late." 7 p.m. was perfect. Emma glanced at the clock, 6:47. She set her tea down, straightened the cushions on the couch, and tried to make the living room look welcoming. Even though she told herself she was fine, there was a flutter of anticipation in her chest she couldn't ignore. When the doorbell rang, Emma took a deep breath. She opened the door to see a young man standing there, holding a small suitcase and giving her a polite smile. "Hi, I'm Jake," he said. His voice was calm, but his eyes had a curious brightness, like he was seeing everything for the first time. Emma shook his hand and stepped aside to let him in. There was something subtle about Jake. Not immediately noticeable, but there. The way he tilted his head slightly as he scanned the room. The quiet care in his movements. He wasn't just polite, he seemed aware. Lily came in behind him, laughter in her voice. "Emma, thanks for letting him crash here for a bit. I promise he's low maintenance." Jake smiled again, his eyes flicking to Emma. "I don't like trouble," he said softly. Emma nodded, unsure why she suddenly felt a little protective over this stranger in her home. Dinner was casual. Lily cooked, and the three of them sat around the table. Jake was friendly, attentive, and asked about Emma's day in a way that made her feel genuinely seen. Not just small talk, real curiosity. Emma felt a warmth spreading inside her chest that she hadn't expected. Later, when Lily went to her room to catch up on some work, Emma and Jake ended up in the living room. The rain was still pattering against the windows, a soft rhythm that made the room feel intimate. "You live alone?" Jake asked casually, glancing at the framed pictures on the wall. "Yes," Emma said, a little surprised at how naturally the conversation flowed. "Mostly quiet. I like it that way." "I get that," he replied. "I've always liked quiet. It makes the small moments stand out more." Emma smiled. That sentence lingered longer than it should have. She found herself studying him, noticing details she hadn't before, how his fingers brushed against the mug he held, the slight curve of his smile, the way his eyes seemed to notice everything. They talked for hours, about books, music, dreams, even little childhood memories. Jake had a way of listening that made Emma feel lighter, like the weight of the week was melting away. She laughed more in those few hours than she had in days. When Lily finally came back, they all shared a quiet cup of tea. Jake thanked Emma sincerely for letting him stay. His gratitude wasn't over the top, it was calm, genuine. And somehow, it touched her more than she expected. Later, as Emma got ready for bed, she realized she hadn't felt this curious about someone in years. Not the kind of curiosity that fades after a night. Something subtler, softer. A flicker of something she couldn't yet name. Before she drifted off, Emma thought about the way Jake had observed her small gestures, the way he had seemed to notice the quiet parts of her personality. It was subtle. Almost imperceptible. Yet it lingered. And she found herself wondering what that meant. If you're enjoying this story so far, please like the video and subscribe for more heartfelt tales. That night, Emma lay in bed staring at the ceiling, trying to process the strange warmth in her chest. She didn't know if it was curiosity, attraction, or simply the comfort of someone noticing her. But she knew one thing, something about Jake felt different. And then, just as sleep began to creep in, she heard the softest sound from the living room, a faint, hesitant knock on the wall near her bedroom. Her heart skipped. Was it Jake? She couldn't tell. But the feeling that tonight was only the beginning of something unexpected wouldn't leave her. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the curtains, casting golden streaks across Emma's bedroom. She woke to the soft hum of the city outside, the faint aroma of coffee drifting from the kitchen. She rubbed her eyes and tried to shake off the lingering thoughts of last night. Downstairs, she found Jake already awake, quietly reading at the kitchen table. He looked up and offered a small smile. "Morning," he said. His voice was calm, soothing, like the steady rhythm of rain against the window. "Morning," Emma replied, a little surprised at how natural it felt to greet him. She poured herself some coffee and leaned against the counter, watching him for a moment. He had a quiet energy, like he belonged somewhere, yet not tied to any particular place. "Did Lily mention any plans for today?" Emma asked, keeping her tone casual. Jake shook his head. "She said she has a few errands, but nothing major. Thought I'd take the day slow." Emma nodded, feeling a small flutter in her chest. There was something about the way he said it, calm, patient, as if he were savoring the simplicity of the morning. They spent the next few hours in easy silence, each immersed in their own activity. Emma tidied the living room while Jake read, but she found herself glancing at him often. She couldn't quite explain the feeling, a mix of comfort and curiosity that made her heart beat a little faster. Later, Lily returned with a cheerful smile, full of energy as usual. "Hey, you two. Did you survive the morning without me?" Emma laughed lightly. "Barely. But we managed." Lily glanced at Jake and then at Emma, noticing the subtle shift in the air between them. She raised an eyebrow but didn't comment. Instead, she handed them both some sandwiches and suggested they go for a walk in the nearby park. The park was quiet, the early afternoon sun warming their skin. Leaves rustled gently in the breeze, and Emma felt herself relax more than she had in weeks. She and Jake walked side by side, their steps in sync without any conscious effort. "You seem to notice small things," Emma said after a while, breaking the comfortable silence. She wasn't sure why she said it, but the words slipped out naturally. Jake glanced at her, a soft smile playing on his lips. "I guess I do. Life is full of small moments. Why not notice them?" Emma felt a warmth spread through her chest. There was something disarming about his honesty, the way he spoke without pretense. She wanted to know more about him, to peel back the layers slowly and see the person beneath. As they walked, they passed a small pond with ducks gliding across the water. Jake paused and pointed out a single duck with a slight limp. "See that one? It's been struggling for a while, but it keeps going. Reminds me of people." Emma laughed softly, touched by the analogy. "You notice everything," she said, shaking her head. Jake shrugged lightly. "I guess. Life's too short to miss the details." Their conversation drifted into lighter topics, favorite movies, childhood memories, and little quirks they had. Emma found herself laughing more than she expected, the sound mingling with the rustle of leaves and distant bird songs. There was a softness to Jake, a patient curiosity that made her feel unusually understood. Later, they returned home. Emma went to make some tea while Jake sorted through a few things Lily had left on the counter. There was a quiet rhythm to their movements, a subtle synchronicity that made the apartment feel warmer, more lived in. That evening, Emma found herself sitting by the window again, the rain starting softly outside. Jake joined her without a word, holding a steaming mug of tea. They sat in companionable silence, watching the droplets race down the glass. "You seem different than I expected," Emma said quietly, still unsure what she meant exactly. Jake tilted his head, curious. "Different? How so?" "Calm. Thoughtful. You notice things most people wouldn't." He smiled softly. "Maybe I just notice what's worth noticing." His gaze lingered on her for a moment, and Emma felt her heart skip. The day ended quietly, but Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something unspoken had shifted between them. There was a subtle electricity, a gentle tension that wasn't romantic yet, but hinted at the possibility. That night, as Emma lay in bed, she found herself thinking about Jake again. The way he had looked at the little details, the small kindnesses he had shown, the quiet attention that had somehow wrapped around her like a soft blanket. She couldn't explain it. But something told her that having him around was going to change more than just her evenings. And then, just before sleep claimed her, she heard it again, a faint knock, almost hesitant, at the living room wall near her bedroom. Her heart fluttered. Was it a message? A signal? Or just her imagination? The quiet tension of the night made her pulse quicken. Emma realized that she had no idea how this weekend would unfold, but she felt certain it would leave a mark on her heart. The next morning, Emma woke to sunlight spilling across her bed, the apartment feeling unusually quiet. Jake was already in the kitchen, humming softly while making coffee. She paused in the doorway for a moment, just watching him move with ease, a subtle focus in his gestures that made everything seem calmer. "Good morning," she said softly. Jake looked up and smiled. "Morning. Sleep well?" "Better than I expected," she admitted, realizing how restless she had been the night before, her mind still lingering on that soft knock on the wall. He nodded knowingly. "Sometimes the quiet brings the loudest thoughts." Emma laughed softly, shaking her head. There was something in the way he spoke, simple yet profound, that made her feel like she could understand more about life, or at least about moments worth noticing. They spent the morning in a slow rhythm, Emma tidying a little, Jake reading on the couch. Occasionally, he would glance up, catching her eye, and a small smile would pass between them. It wasn't flirtation exactly, but it carried warmth, a subtle connection forming without words. Later, Lily suggested a trip to the local art museum. Emma wasn't sure why, but she felt a small thrill at the idea of seeing Jake in a new setting, observing how he reacted to things outside their quiet apartment. The museum was peaceful that afternoon, sunlight filtering through the skylights and illuminating paintings in golden hues. Jake moved through the rooms deliberately, taking time to read plaques, linger near certain works, and notice things most visitors might overlook. "You notice so much," Emma whispered as they paused in front of a landscape painting. The colors were muted, but the scene felt alive. Jake's eyes met hers. "Some things are worth noticing. Like moments. Or people." Emma felt a warmth she couldn't place. His words were gentle, but the way he said them made her pulse quicken just a little. They walked slowly, occasionally discussing the artwork, sometimes just observing in silence. By the time they left, the sun had dipped low, casting long shadows across the streets. The city had a soft glow, and Emma felt lighter than she had in weeks. She realized she was looking forward to these quiet days with Jake more than she expected. Back at the apartment, dinner was casual. Lily had gone out to meet a friend, leaving Emma and Jake alone in the living room. The rain had started again, tapping against the windows in a soothing rhythm. "I like how you notice small things," Emma said, wrapping her hands around a warm cup of tea. "It's rare." Jake smiled softly. "Maybe I just like to be present. It makes life richer." She nodded, feeling that subtle tension again, the unspoken connection that had been growing since he arrived. She wasn't sure what it meant yet, only that it was different, and it made her heart stir in ways she hadn't expected. They sat in silence for a while, watching the rain. The apartment felt warm and quiet, like a small world separate from everything else. Emma felt a softness in her chest, a gentle pull toward something she couldn't define. Hours passed, and Lily returned home later than expected. She was bubbly, full of chatter about her evening, but Emma found her mind drifting back to Jake, noticing the little details, how he smiled at small things, how calm he seemed, how present he was without trying. That night, Emma lay in bed, replaying moments from the day. She realized she was aware of him in a way she hadn't expected, his presence lingering in her thoughts, like a quiet song that played softly in the background of her mind. Then, just before she drifted to sleep, the faintest knock came again, delicate, almost hesitant, near the living room wall. Emma's heart skipped. It wasn't loud, but it was persistent enough to pull her attention. She wondered if it was Jake, if it was a coincidence, or something else entirely. The curiosity mixed with a warmth in her chest, a feeling she couldn't quite name. Something about him lingered in the quiet corners of her day, in the soft pattern of the rain, in the subtle rhythm of the apartment. Emma realized this weekend was becoming something unexpected. Something that would leave a gentle mark on her heart. And she wasn't sure if she was ready for it, or if she even wanted to be. The morning arrived with the soft light of a cloudy sky. Emma woke to the distant hum of traffic, the apartment feeling unusually still. Jake was already in the kitchen, arranging cups for breakfast with a quiet precision. She lingered at the doorway, watching him for a moment. There was a calmness to him, a subtle attentiveness that made her feel unexpectedly at ease. "Morning," she said, stepping inside. "Morning," he replied, looking up with a gentle smile. "Did you sleep well?" "Better than I thought I would," she admitted, feeling a warmth rise in her chest. She set down her mug, noticing how naturally their routines had begun to overlap. There was comfort in his presence, subtle, unspoken, yet undeniable. Lily had plans for the day, leaving Emma and Jake alone again. The quiet that followed wasn't awkward, it was comforting. They moved through the apartment like two people perfectly in sync, aware of each other's rhythms without needing words. Emma found herself curious about him, curious in a way that wasn't intrusive. She noticed the small gestures, the way he lingered just a moment longer on a shelf, the soft tone he used when speaking to the cat, the way he seemed to absorb the atmosphere rather than demand attention. "I never realized how quiet moments could feel so full," Emma said softly as she poured herself coffee. Jake glanced up, eyebrows slightly raised, a small smile on his lips. "They're often the ones that matter most," he said. His voice carried a kind of sincerity that made her pause. It wasn't just words, it was the way he lived them. They spent the morning talking about everything and nothing. Music, favorite books, little stories from childhood. The conversation flowed effortlessly, the kind that makes time feel suspended. Emma realized she was laughing more freely than she had in months. By afternoon, a light drizzle had begun outside. Emma suggested a walk in the neighborhood. Jake agreed without hesitation, and they left together, their steps slow and easy. The streets were quiet, puddles reflecting the soft gray sky. Emma noticed how Jake's presence made ordinary things seem more interesting, the way he pointed out a pattern in the brickwork, or how he paused to watch a bird take flight. She felt herself drawn in, paying attention in ways she hadn't before. "You see the world differently," she said quietly, her voice almost lost in the drizzle. Jake looked at her, his gaze steady and calm. "Maybe I just notice what most people miss." There was something in that simple statement that struck her. Not just the words, but the way he said them, softly, without pride, with genuine care. It made her heart ache slightly, a mix of admiration and something unnamed stirring inside. They returned to the apartment as the rain slowed. Inside, Emma felt a gentle anticipation, a subtle electricity she couldn't quite define. They moved through the evening in quiet companionship, preparing simple dinner, exchanging small smiles, and sharing a warmth that wasn't spoken but deeply felt. Lily returned late again, and Emma noticed the way Jake's attention shifted slightly, but not in a showy way. It was natural, subtle, almost imperceptible. That quiet attentiveness tugged at Emma's thoughts, leaving her distracted, aware of every small detail he made. Later, as the apartment settled into nighttime, Emma found herself by the window, the city lights casting soft glows across the walls. Jake joined her with a steaming cup of tea, his presence quiet but grounding. They stood together, watching the city pulse in soft, muted rhythms. "You notice the small things," Emma said softly, almost to herself. Jake smiled, a gentle, knowing smile. "They're often the ones that matter most." It was the same thought he had shared before, yet tonight it resonated differently. The words hung in the air, filling the space between them with quiet significance. Emma felt a warmth in her chest, an awareness that she wasn't alone in noticing subtle, fleeting moments. Then, just as she was about to turn away, the faintest knock came again, soft and deliberate against the wall near her bedroom. Emma's pulse quickened. It had happened twice before, but each time it felt more intentional, more mysterious. Her mind raced. Was it just coincidence? Or was it something else, something that required attention, a small signal that Jake might be trying to share without words? She didn't know. But the thought kept her awake longer than she expected, her heart tingling with curiosity and a quiet anticipation she couldn't ignore. The morning sun filtered softly through the curtains, painting the room in gentle gold. Emma woke with a quiet anticipation, her mind lingering on the subtle rhythm of the past days. She could hear the distant city hum outside, but inside the apartment, everything felt suspended in a calm, delicate bubble. Jake was already in the kitchen, humming lightly as he arranged cups for breakfast. The familiarity of his presence no longer felt strange, it was comforting. She leaned against the doorway, noticing the effortless way he moved, the attention to small details that seemed so natural. "Good morning," she said softly. "Morning," he replied, looking up with that calm, gentle smile. "Did you sleep well?" Emma nodded. Better than I expected. She stepped inside, taking in the small scene before her, the quiet apartment, the sunlight, the steaming mugs. It all felt peaceful, like a world paused just for them. After breakfast, Lily left for a long day out. Emma and Jake were left in the apartment again, a comfortable silence settling between them. Emma found herself glancing at him more than once, noticing the small, subtle things, the tilt of his head as he read, the soft focus in his eyes, the way he moved with quiet purpose. You notice a lot of things, she said softly, not sure why the words came out. Jake looked up, meeting her gaze. I notice what matters, he said simply. The calm sincerity in his voice made her heart stir, a warmth spreading gently through her chest. The day passed in a slow, quiet rhythm. They shared stories, talked about small dreams, and occasionally laughed at little jokes that felt more intimate because they weren't planned. Emma felt herself relaxing completely, her mind and heart drawn naturally to his presence. By late afternoon, a light drizzle began, casting a soft grey over the city. Emma suggested a walk, and Jake agreed. They strolled through the quiet streets, boots splashing lightly in puddles, their conversation drifting seamlessly between casual talk and deeper reflections. You see the little things, Emma said quietly, watching his expression as he paused to watch a bird hop across the sidewalk. Jake smiled softly. Sometimes the small things tell you the most. She felt a quiet ache in her chest, a mix of admiration and a subtle longing she didn't fully understand. There was something about the way he observed life, gentle and patient, that made ordinary moments feel extraordinary. When they returned to the apartment, the rain had slowed to a soft drizzle. Emma found herself lingering in the living room, wrapped in the warmth of a quiet evening. Jake joined her with tea, and they sat together, listening to the soft patter against the windows. The moments stretched in gentle silence, unspoken but charged with a quiet connection. Emma realized that Jake's presence had become more than comforting, he had become a part of her routine, a part of her thoughts, a presence she didn't want to let go. That night, as she prepared for bed, the faint knock came again. Emma froze, her heart skipping a beat. It was deliberate this time, soft but unmistakable. She realized it wasn't just a coincidence. Jake had been communicating something quietly, subtly, through small gestures and moments of awareness. The realization washed over her, soft and unassuming, but profound. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying all the little signs, the way he noticed details, the way he listened, the quiet attentiveness that made her feel seen. And for the first time, she allowed herself to accept the soft truth forming in her heart. She had begun to care. But it wasn't dramatic or sudden. It was quiet, a gentle awareness that had grown slowly, imperceptibly, like sunlight creeping over the horizon. And it was real. Emma smiled softly, a tear threatening but unshed. This weekend, the subtle things, the unnoticed gestures, the quiet attentiveness, it had changed something inside her. She didn't know exactly what the future held, but she understood this now. The heart notices even the smallest gestures, and sometimes, that's enough to begin something extraordinary. The faint knock came one last time that night, almost like a punctuation mark in a story only they understood. Emma's chest tightened with anticipation, but it was a gentle feeling, full of hope, curiosity, and the quiet stirrings of a soft, unspoken connection. The weekend had ended, but something in her heart had shifted. And she knew that subtle realizations sometimes leave the deepest impressions, the ones that linger long after the moment has passed. And as she drifted into sleep, Emma felt a quiet certainty. Some connections, once noticed, change everything, without a word, without a rush, but with a depth that speaks to the heart.